In this lesson, let's talk about how to create buttons and what the options are. I'm going to launch up AnimClick, create new map. As you can see at the bottom here, if I select an object like this, and if I drag and drop this onto a map, a button is created. So whenever I click on this button, it will select the object. If I select multiple objects and then drag and drop a button, if I click that button, it will select the multiple objects. What if I want to change the membership? So right now, if I click this button, it will only select one object. But what if I want to select all these three? What I can do is right click on it. I get this pop-up menu. I can choose this redefine members option. If I choose that, from now, whenever I click this button, it will select three objects. So you can always change memberships afterwards. If you like to have a different color for your button, click on this swatch. Then it will bring up Maya's color editor. You can use this ring, spectrum. You can load up your own image. You can use this blend color scheme. Click OK. If I select any object, drag and drop a button, I get a different color. This time I would choose different colors, something brighter. But what if I drag and drop onto an existing button? So now if I click on it, it will select different object. So what happens is, if you drag and drop from here onto a different button, it will simply replace it. Let's talk about the commands. In AnimClick, it comes with 6 different default commands, and also you can have your own custom commands to be executed. We have used select command. Let's try key. What it does is, if you click this button, it will keyframe the object. Select this object. I'm going to change the color slightly different. Drag and drop. So now if I click on it, it will keyframe it. I'm going to undo. This time I'm going to select certain channels such as rotate attributes. If I drag and drop another button, this time if I click this, it will only keyframe on those selected channels. Now let's talk about reset command. Select the object, drag and drop like this. Now if I move this object, rotate and scale, and if I click this button, it will reset transforms. In other words, it will reset all the keyable attributes. But let's say if I move around, rotate it, scale, this time I am going to select only the rotate channels. And if I drag and drop another button, if I click on it, it will only reset the selected channels. Next, toggle. If I don't select any channels from the channel box, and if I drag and drop a button like this, it will give me warning. It will say, select the channels from the channel box that you like to toggle, then retry. Close it out. So this time, I like to toggle visibility. So I will select this channel, drag and drop. Now, if I click this and click it again, it will toggle it. Now, let's talk about the other two commands, pose and the range. First of all, pose. Just like any other buttons, you can always select more than one object to have a button to associate with. I'm going to select these two. I'm going to move them, rotate them. I'm going to drag and drop one button like this. As you can see, it comes with a slider and reset button. So if I click on the reset button, these objects will go back to the rest position. If I click on the button, they will go to the pose. I can use this slider to have any in-between pose. Now a range button is slightly different from pose button. Very similar, but slightly different. Let's take a look. This object has an attribute. This attribute goes from minimum -10 to maximum 10 and 0 as a default value. So if I move this, it will do this. When an attribute has minimum and maximum value, in other words, when the attribute has a range, you can use range button. You need to select the channel first, drag and drop. Looks kind of like pose button. It comes with a slider and then the reset button as well. I can move this slider to go to maximum value and the minimum. Whenever I click on the reset button, it will go to the default value. If I click on the button, it will go to the maximum. I'm going to reset this. You can also use this range button for any transform attributes. Say, translate. If I set minimum and maximum for this, let's say -2 to +2. If I set it that way, I have a range. So right now, if I select the channel, that is translate X, if I drag and drop another button, I get this slider. From there, I can move around within the range. Just like any other range button, if I click on the button, it will go to the maximum. If I drag it down, it will go to the minimum. If I click on the reset button, it will go to the default value.